Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Comic Book Wednesdays. This is an Epic Wednesday collaboration between myself and Michael K. Vaughan, where we're going through comic books, collections of comic books, mostly his Epic collection, which is vast. Marvel Comics does a reprint line called the Epic Collections, square-bound, paperback, full-color reprints that can bounce all around their chronology. So if you've got an X-Men Epic collection, #1, it doesn't have to be the first 20 issues of the X-Men. And the next one doesn't have to be the next 20 issues. You can go from run to run, from incarnation to incarnation. Michael's tastes and mine differ quite a bit, which has led quite a few of you to email me wondering, is this coming Epic Wednesdays going to be a throwdown where we fight with each other? And there have been quite a few where we completely agreed. But today is not one of them. Today, well, actually, we do agree, because Michael picks these things, but he doesn't necessarily pick them because he thinks they're the bee's knees. And this time around, we're doing an epic collection of the Black Panther called Panther's Rage, all drawn by written by Don McGregor. And the artwork is split between an artist who didn't do a whole lot for Marvel, Billy Graham, and an artist who did a lot for Marvel, Rich Buckler. Neither one of them, I would say, at the top of their game in these issues. The issues that are repeated here are from 50 years ago. And I think this epic collection is just a misfire on almost all grounds, unfortunately, even down to the cover. That is the cover of this volume, but the individual issues in this run have some amazing covers by the great Gil Kane. Why wouldn't they use this cover as opposed to one where the Black Panther has his back to you and is punching something that the action of his punch obscures from view, so you don't even know what it is. You don't even know what's happening, except that he's fighting some kind of thing in the snow. Whereas this is beautiful. It's a work of art. Or let's get another one here. Yeah, this is fantastic. That cover, back when this issue first came out, actually almost tempted me to buy this issue because of how great it is. Let me show you one other while I'm doing this. Look at this. This is just gorgeous. Look at that. That is just amazing. Why not use one of those for the cover of this epic collection called The Panther's Rage, which is noteworthy for a couple of things. #1, the graphic novel calls itself Black Panther, but as you can see, these issues were jungle action. Marvel never actually saw fit during this run by Don McGregor to give the Black Panther his own book, or to retitle this. They could have done it with a snap of an editorial decision. They didn't do it. And #2, the reason it's called The Panther's Rage is because Don McGregor envisioned a gigantic, multi-issue storyline, something that would take him the better part of 2 years to write if he'd been allowed to finish it. It was a kind of unprecedented idea for a comic book writer, and he was just given free rein to do it. And that is ironic for a volume called The Panther's Rage, not only because it's not Black Panther. I mean, we're calling it that as a courtesy because the character has become incredibly popular. More on that in a minute. But also, at no point in the entire course of the issues repeated here is the Black Panther himself, T'Challa of the Kingdom of Wakanda. At no point in these issues is he any more than mildly miffed. He is never actually enraged in any of the course of this. And almost every issue, as you can see, almost every issue breathlessly promises you that this is going to be the moment when T'Challa loses it. This is when we're going to see the Panther's Rage unleashed. And it never happens. Instead, he talks endlessly in diners and next to parked cars and in hotel rooms, and infamously in a scene that Michael K. Vaughan rightly lampooned in his own video. I'll leave a link to his video down below. In a supermarket. He endlessly talks, and so do all the other characters. This was an ambitious idea to have the Black Panther, to infuse Black Panther's own book with the heightened racial consciousness of the era in which these issues were written. But Don McGregor could no more pull it off than he could sprout wings and fly to the moon. It's a failure. The whole thing is a failure. It's unbelievably wordy. These are comic books written by a novelist wannabe. The artwork is quite good. I was actually very happy to hear Michael K. Vaughan praise Billy Graham. I actually think he does pretty good work. Even without, I mean, I agree, he's a bit of a sloppy, in these issues, kind of a neophyte artist, is what it seems like, who improves a lot when you give him a strong inker. But I think even without strong inking, he has plenty of issues in this run where he has no strong inking. I think even without those, his panels are always interesting to look at. But they are static. Mostly they are static. Not things like this. But I wonder, this issue will give it... Yeah, look at this. That is an action page, but look how static it is. Just one panel after one panel after one panel, and look at all the writing! Oh my god! This is a scene in which Black Panther is hurling himself onto his enemies and they are falling off a cliff. And look at all this writing! It's just endless. It goes on forever in every issue. It's interesting for its time, but here, let me get back to the cover there. It's interesting for its time, but it can't help but raise all sorts of issues about Marvel Comics today. I mean, in these issues, and in complementary issues that were happening in the Defenders at about the same time, the writers at Marvel Comics, the more socially conscious among them, were crafting a world in which characters like Black Panther could face, or Luke Cage, could face problems of racism that were in society. And their viewpoint was that those problems were the Ku Klux Klan, were fat cat financiers who were willing to let whole neighborhoods burn down just to pad their bottom line, and that those were the kinds of people that good, right-thinking people should fight against, led by whichever superhero happened to be involved. But that was 50 years ago. In 2021, it's typical, it's almost cliche to say you couldn't write this today. And the reason you couldn't write this today is because when the writers at 2021 Marvel Comics look around the world for those virulent, venom-spitting, sheet-wearing racists, the only candidates they see are their own consumers, their own fans. The older 40-something white male customer who is the absolute backbone of the comic book industry. These writers see them, and they don't see anyone else. And they never stop talking about it on social media or at comic book conventions or in interviews or in their issues. I think that situation, that radical, weird, leftist, political polarization of Marvel Comics in 2020, 2017, 2018, 2021 might be a good explanation for the fact that the Black Panther, I don't think at the moment, has a monthly comic book from Marvel Comics. And even when the character does, it struggles to sell 15,000 copies a month. This is a character who raked in $1 billion at the box office. The Black Panther movie made $1 billion. Every person in the world has heard about this character, and it stands to reason that quite a few of them, maybe on their way to the grocery store, have wandered into a comic shop to look to see if maybe Black Panther's comics are worth buying, and they very much aren't. Because if you are Marvel Comics and you hire foaming at the mouth political extremists at either end of the political spectrum, you're going to get politics and you're going to get propaganda, but you're not going to get into entertaining comics. There's nothing like that in these issues. Don McGregor was about as socially conscious and angry about the right issues in the right way as anyone could be. But it would never have crossed his mind to write the kind of racist garbage that's in Marvel Comics today. And as a result, you couldn't do a long series like The Panther's Rage today. The only weird, through-the-looking-glass, funhouse mirror approximation of it would be Ta-Nehisi Coates' long run on Black Panther, which is so disastrous in so many ways that it would take a 40-minute video just to talk about it. And the only thing that those two runs have in common is that they aren't entertaining. I would argue, Michael might disagree with me here, I would argue that that T'Challa, the Black Panther, has almost never had an entertaining run on his own in a comic book. Michael points out darkly. I actually think, he says he's never going to do it, but he's so fond of tormenting me, he may actually do it. He points out darkly that right after this run of Jungle Action was canceled, Marvel did decide to give Black Panther his own book with his name as the title, with its own new #1. And you might be thinking, well, why do you sound so dark about that? That's wonderful. No, they gave it to Jack Kirby late in his career, in his disastrous auteur phase, when they gave him Captain America, they gave him Black Panther, and they let him invent the Eternals. And the Eternals is all about a race of unbelievably superpowered beings who are immortal and who've been living on Earth forever. And I read that first issue of the Eternals, and I thought all of the questions that everybody who's 50 years younger has been asking for the last year about the Eternals movie that's about to inflict itself on movie theaters, which is, where were all these superpowered beings when all of X, Y, and Z catastrophes were happening? Jack Kirby trying to tell us that there were 100, 200, 500, however many there are, superpowered Eternals on Earth when Galactus tried to eat it, to eat the planet. I had the same questions then, and my questions about Kirby's run on Black Panther and Captain America were far more fundamental. They were along the lines of, I know this is a living legend as an artist, but why are you letting him do this to these characters? His runs on Captain America and Black Panther might have the occasional really good cover, but they are unbelievably, almost surreally bad. I'm not saying that this is all that much better. These issues are just so unbearably talky, that you just want them, maybe Michael doesn't, but I just wanted them to be over. I mean, I didn't collect Jungle Action when this series was going on, but I had a friend who did. And we used to meet, not in this room, but in a room very much like this, for wine and calzones, once a week, where we would talk comics and also swap comics. Not permanently swap, but he would come over with a bunch of his latest issues. I would have a bunch of mine, and we would catch up on the reading that we didn't do, the issues that we don't collect. You're still curious about them, but you're not going to buy it yourself for all of 25 cents. So we used to do that. We would come over, we would have what we called a study session, where we would read each other's issues that the other hadn't bought. And then we would break out the wine and calzones and talk all about them, about everything else as well. And even while I was reading this the first time, I was thinking, okay, well, you've got the social consciousness just right. And you're entirely right about endemic racial injustices in America and maybe even around the world. And you're trying to come up with good villains. Now and again, you're trying to do that. There's one particular thing. I think Michael actually showed it in as a specific thing in one of his in his video, where at one point, T'Challa confronts a female villain who apparently has a way with cheetahs. And there's a confrontation scene here. Let me get to it. That is kind of weird. It's kind of weird. If I can find it, I've got all the artwork here. Well, this isn't quite it, but that's her. And those things are supposed to be cheetahs. They most certainly are not. Maybe Billy Graham just drew them as leopards. But whether they're cheetahs or leopards, the death trap here is for T'Challa to be dragged behind two of them to his death. He's dragged along rocks by these two running cats that seem to me to want to be cheetahs. I wonder. No, they're leopards. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, because your average leopard is, first of all, they're not going to run straight out, especially across rocky ground. They're not sprinters. They're not cheetahs themselves. They're going to run in little curlicues like cats do. And they're going to fight with each other. And they're going to turn around and eat whatever they're dragging behind them. And also a grown man, especially a grown man with superb athletic ability, like T'Challa, would not be dragged behind two running leopards. I think people maybe misunderstand how small leopards are. They're mighty strong animals, but this is ridiculous as a kind of a death trap. It's ridiculous. Although, if I remember correctly, the issue sports an incredible Gil Kane cover, despite the fact that it is from first to last preposterous. Yeah, here's the Black Panther just hanging out on a piano, like the Star Wars guy in Saturday Night Live. He does everything in these issues except rage. He's always hanging out or jumping around or doing things. Yeah, there's epilogue of death. He is being dragged through an animal graveyard by these cheetahs. And you notice this was a little trick that seasoned artists like Gil Kane used to do sometimes. There are a couple of artists that will still try to do it today. Artists are egomaniacs, like all other art, like all other kinds of artists, and they don't like their artwork to be cluttered up with word balloons. And at the time, it was standard Marvel practice to put words all over covers. We saw examples of that already on this video. Gil Kane intentionally drew this, positioned things in such a way that there's really nowhere a word balloon can go that won't obscure the action. So you can see it was a standard instruction to Marvel cover artists. Make sure that everyone on the cover has their mouths open, because we're going to want people to be talking. We're going to insert word balloons. You don't have to do it, but we're going to do it. So make sure that it is clear that people are talking on the cover, because that's what we're going to impose on your artwork. You can see the female villain there is saying something, probably, "Drag him, my darlings, drag him to his death." But there's no room for the word balloon. Either that, or maybe Don McGregor decided that the cover was too pretty to put words all over. But what was I saying? Oh, right. I was venting about current politics in Marvel Comics, which doesn't get us anywhere at all. I realize that. But one thing that is inescapable from the acidic, hateful politics that are all over Marvel Comics today, there's an infamous, I would say, I'm not going to say classic, there's an infamous two-issue cliffhanger thing in this run of the Panther's Rage, where the Black Panther fights the Ku Klux Klan, and he's overwhelmed by force of numbers and tied to a cross that the Klan then sets on fire. And he manages to save himself, although he's badly hurt, he's badly wounded, he's badly burned. He recovers quickly because of the mystic herbs that he ingested in order to become the Black Panther. But he nevertheless has to go to the hospital and wait a while to get better. And when I was rereading that issue for this Epic Wednesday, I kept thinking, the only way that a 2021 Marvel Comics writer would write that scene would be if the Black Panther were strapped to a cross and an attempt was made to burn him alive at a New York comic book convention, and that the people who did the strapping and the burning were comic book fans at the convention. That's how much hatred these writers have for the pillar of their own business, which is why their business has, in the last 5 years, gone straight down the toilet, which is why Marvel can't sell a comic book to save their life, because the hatred they have for their core audience is not only easy to see, but explicitly stated. So I don't know what would happen to, maybe Ta-Nehisi Coates is still writing Black Panther, but if so, considering that he's a New York Times best-selling author, that will make the book's pathetic sales all the more noteworthy, which feels a little bit strained for me to say, because it's not like Black Panther got any better. This at least had the courage of its convictions and lots of conscientiousness and interesting artwork. This is early Rich Buckler artwork when Rich Buckler is an imitator. He doesn't really have a style of his own. He's more of an imitator. And he's a very good imitator. And for his run on this book, he was largely imitating Billy Graham. He was largely imitating that kind of stretched out, vaguely hyper-dramatic, cartoony poses of bodies and cartoony vantage points and whatnot. Later on, when he would draw Thor, he would just imitate Jack Kirby, to the point of lifting whole panel designs, specific panel designs where bodies are just swapped out. He did the same thing on the Fantastic Four. Not to say that it wasn't enjoyable, although plenty of people wrote in and said, look, I've been reading Marvel Comics for 25 years. I already paid for this artwork once. Why on earth are you telling this Rich Buckler guy that it's okay for him to recycle actual panels from Jack Kirby artwork? There were issues of Thor that were all that. There weren't any panels that Rich Buckler designed himself. I don't think I was one of those people, but I'm not 100% sure. I dashed off a lot of letters in the olden days of comic books. I never wrote into Black Panther. Never. It always seemed just a waste of time to do. This author clearly had a mission in mind. He clearly had a vision, and he was just writing. He was writing his comics like there were no pictures. He never lets the pictures do any kind of work. He's always there on the panel to tell you what's going on. So I didn't enjoy rereading this epic at all. I didn't enjoy it at all. These issues, they're dorky and they're earnest. They're heartfelt. I guess you could have affection for them that way, but aside from that, they're just as bad the second time through. Michael K. Vaughan said that his reread of them was more enjoyable. That he finds they hold up. I don't know what comics he was reading. Character shows up, has a bit of a dramatic entrance, and then the two of them swap polemics for 40 pages. It just feels a little bit like the law of diminishing returns, because it doesn't get any better. It gets much worse. This at least was heartfelt and intelligent. There's no doubting Don McGregor's intelligence in these issues. Whereas no one could use the word intelligent in connection with the Jack Kirby run that comes right after this. And that, for all I know, has been collected in a Black Panther epic collection. I'd like to think that Marvel would quietly bury that Kirby the auteur period. Of course, they can't do it, because the foremost product of that period is the Eternals, and they want to make $1 billion off this new Eternals movie that has all the film dudes going nuts. I do not see what they see in this Eternals movie. I do not see it. When they're talking about daringness of design and feel of it being different from other Marvel superhero movies, one kid on Twitter actually talked about the innovative color design, the color palette of the movie. It's practically filmed in monotone. I don't know what the kid was looking at. But who knows what the kids are vaping these days? Who knows what colors they're seeing that aren't really there? In any case, this particular Epic Wednesday, not so much. Not so much. What the heretical opinion that I've granted, a lot of you are going to be poo-pooing my review of this anyway, because a lot of you, quite rightly, over the years that we've been talking with each other, pointed out how little patience I seem to have with superheroes who have no superpowers. T'Challa is one of those superheroes. The initiation rite for him to become his people's ancestral icon, the Black Panther, involved ingesting unknown herbs. They tweaked it a little for the Black Panther movie, but in the Black Panther's origin story, he ingests unknown herbs, goes through, of course, from childhood rigorous physical training. And the combination of those two things makes him the pinnacle of human perfection. So he has basically his own version of Captain America's super soldier formula. But he's the pinnacle of human perfection. He's not beyond human, although you'd be hard-pressed to explain that in some of these issues. Gil Kane, the artist who's doing these covers, has a guest spot as an artist in the interior artwork of one of these issues, in which a boy wanders in front of an African rhino. The rhino charges the boy. Black Panther leaps on the rhino's neck, wrestles it to the ground, and snaps its neck for charging a boy who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And T'Challa rests on top of the rhino and says, well, at least no one was hurt this time around. The rhino's dead, an endangered animal. And also, then Don McGregor's narrative there says that T'Challa is wrestling 1.5 tons of furious rhino. That's a baby rhino. 1.5 tons is a baby rhino, not an adult rhino. An adult rhino is 5 times, 6 times that much. If you are strong enough to grab a rhino by the head, a charging rhino, wrestle it to the ground and snap its neck, then you are superhuman. To say nothing of catching the thing. If you can do that, then you're superhuman. And that sort of wanders all over the map in some of these issues. At one point, Black Panther out-wrestles a crocodile, giant crocodile. When those are superhuman feats, readers are strongly encouraged to believe that Tarzan, for instance, has broken through into superhuman levels of strength simply by being raised by Gomangani, by being raised by these great apes. The Black Panther, though, no. He doesn't have any superpowers. He can't command any animals. He leaps all the time in these issues, but he can't leap any superhuman distance. And I admit, a lack of patience with non-superpowered superheroes. But even so, I have a heretical opinion about the Black Panther, and that is that I think his best realization was, I think it was right about the same time that these issues were coming out. One of you could check the chronology better. There was a run on the Avengers. Roy Thomas was writing it, John Buscema was drawing it, and the Black Panther was for 50 issues, a solid member on that run. It's a terrific run on the Avengers. And I think that T'Challa, the Black Panther, was done better in those issues than in any book that's he's ever had on his own. He's more empathetic, more enjoyable, certainly more exciting, more formidable physically than anything here. Here, I honestly think that you could swap him out wholesale in these issues for 1970s Green Arrow or for Daredevil. Daredevil is in an issue here and there. It's embarrassing how exactly identical they are in all ways, except costume. I don't see the appeal of these issues. I don't know many people who do, but now I know one more, as Michael Vaughan likes these issues, at least a little. So that's our epic collection for today. Something that skirts politics in the way that politics runs comics now, but that was very political in its day, when it would never have occurred to the writer of this book to just flat out call his readers the problem. That runs so fundamentally against the way of doing comics that Stan Lee invented with Fantastic Four #1 that it was, I think, literally inconceivable at the time when these issues came out. And it is now the standard operating procedure for Marvel Comics. So a very, very different time. I don't know that any of Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Panther issues have an epic collection. I'd kind of like to think they don't. And I also like everybody else, I don't know how they're going to handle the new Black Panther movie. I mean, Shuri, the character from the first Black Panther movie, is apparently going to take on the mantle of Black Panther. But I don't know what kind of reception that's going to be met with by the movie-going audience. I think a perfect opportunity was wasted here, an opportunity to keep film buffs arguing for centuries, and that is to recast T'Challa in the movies. Since Chadwick Boseman died, the idea that I would prefer is that Marvel recast the character. So the character of the Black Panther, T'Challa, doesn't go anywhere. You just have a new actor playing him, hopefully for a great many movies. And I think the thing that would keep the film bros arguing forever is that I think the natural choice for such a casting is Michael B. Jordan, the actor who played Killraven in the Black Panther movie and absolutely stole the movie. I think he would be incredible as Black Panther. For all I know, he auditioned for Black Panther. Just recast it. That's all. Just recast it. Just have the next Black Panther movie with T'Challa, only played by a different actor. Instead of, I mean, what is the second Black Panther movie going to do? Say that T'Challa died? I don't know how that would work, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it when the movie comes out. I don't even have a trailer for it. I don't even have a screener for the next Black Panther movie, so I have no idea. But anyway, that is our Epic Wednesday for today. We'll see what Michael picks for next week. Quivered in my boots. But in the meantime, I'll wrap this up. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.